5 years ago, I was getting off a 23-hour flight from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. We pulled into Sydney around 6 in the morning, and by 6:30, I was on my way to the Star Casino to play poker. I'm Rob, and I'm a recovering gambling addict. I made my last bet on November the 12th of 2022, and I want to share what I learned from the lowest points of my life with you so that you can avoid going down the same path that I did. I want you to smash that subscribe button if you want to live a happy and healthy life without the chaos of addiction, because I'm here to help you do just that. It wasn't the first time that I'd found myself doing something so crazy to gamble, and it wouldn't be the last. I had driven to Atlantic City in the middle of the night, made 5 a.m. deposits to reload my sports betting account at an ATM, and I've even snuck off to the bathroom during a funeral to play hands of blackjack. Yet, looking back, I think that early morning poker game, halfway around the world, taught me something more valuable than any of the other rock bottom moments that I had experienced up until then. It was that no matter where I went, I couldn't escape who I was. I moved to Australia because I wanted things to be different. See, at this point in my life, I was pretty depressed. And the reasons that I was depressed ranged from a variety of things. I was at school and I didn't really enjoy what I was doing. None of the jobs that I had ever worked seemed to give me any meaning. I was drinking too much, I was eating unhealthy, and I wasn't in a great relationship. At the end of the day though, the real problems in my life were gambling. And I was just doing anything that I could to avoid that truth. And meaning that I literally decided to move around the world just to see if I could change my environment rather than focusing on changing who I was. Because I didn't think I was the problem. I thought the problem was that I was in a place that I didn't like so much, and that the things I was doing, well, they weren't what I was meant to be doing. But I hadn't even considered the fact that, hey, maybe all these problems are because you're going broke every week, losing your money gambling. Actually never crossed my mind, as ridiculous as that actually sounds saying it out loud now. So I looked into study abroad programs without knowing that Australia actually had the highest rate of gambling addiction in the world, and I packed my bags and moved there. I'd very quickly find out exactly why they had the highest rates of addiction in the world, and it was because I was doing research on what to do when I got there. And the very first thing that I saw was the Star Casino. This research was being done at the airport, literally as I'm about to get on the plane and go. It was in my head now that once I landed, I needed to go and check out this casino. And that's exactly what I did. I skipped an orientation at the place that I was going to be living, passing up on the opportunity to make friends. In fact, there's some people that I was living with in Australia that follow me here on this account, and if they were to make a comment and tell you, they probably don't know anything about me, because I was at the casino when they were out trying to get to know each other. So I went to Australia to try to change things, but I ended up just going back into the same old habits of gambling every single day and trying to get a big win that I didn't even need. The reason that the lesson I learned was so powerful was because it wasn't a financial rock bottom. Up until this point, I had had a few times where I went into debt because of my gambling, but I always justified it by saying, hey, maybe I was unlucky, or hey, maybe I'm bad at gambling and I can get better. When I was in Australia, I didn't really lose massive amounts of money, but what I did lose was the time, and my emotions were obviously a roller coaster depending on whether I was winning or losing in the moment. So what I came to find was, I was miserable, and it was because of the chaos that was in my life as a result of the gambling. It didn't mean that I was going into life-changing debt in Australia, because I wasn't. I was losing the money that I had. I actually didn't go into debt during the time I was there, which isn't true for the remainder of the time I was gambling. But I traveled trying to change my life, trying to change my environment, because that's what I thought the problem was, and just continued to do the same things and never confront the issue. So I'm sitting there at this poker game just 30 minutes, 45 minutes into being in a new country, and I'm just playing a game that I could have played at home. And just thinking about the wasted potential, the wasted opportunities, it's pretty disappointing. But at the end of the day, it's the decision that I made, and it was one of the best things that could have happened to me. Because alongside the financial consequences that came with the inevitable gambling I was doing at the end, I needed to remember that this was more than just a money problem. This was impacting all aspects of my life. And until I could come to terms with the fact that I had a gambling addiction, I was never going to get better. If you can see, I was massively in denial during this time. I tried everything except quitting gambling to solve my perceived mental health problems. I was actually miserable because I was spending all my time trying to cover debts, lying to the people around me, and suffering an emotional roller coaster every time that I placed a bet. But I thought that it must be something to do with where I'm going to school, or my major, or my job. Someone with a gambling addiction rarely ever wants to admit that we're gambling in a way that's unhealthy or different from other people. But if we stop and we're honest with ourselves, we can see that it's pretty obvious. I was gambling all the time. Why else do you think I have a channel here where I make videos about gambling addiction every day? It's because it consumed my life to a wild degree. Now, someone that inspires me is Steve Jobs, and in a speech he gave to the class of Stanford, I remember him saying that death was the single greatest change agent of life, because death reminds us that life is short, and we have to, do the things that we love to do with the time we have on Earth. Though I agree that death is a pretty powerful change agent, I think an even stronger change agent is the emotional rock bottoms that we experience in life. When something's okay, we typically stick to it. If you kinda sorta don't like your job, but it's paying the bills, it's okay, everyone's tolerable, you're not really gonna be motivated to quit and pursue a brand new career. If you kinda sorta feel okay about your body and you're not really unhealthy, but you're not quite healthy, you're probably not gonna be motivated to get a diet and go to the gym. It takes an extreme event, or more than the normal, to motivate you to make a change in life. And I needed to have these emotional rock bottoms where I came to terms with the fact that I was screwing my own life up, or I'd never have made a change. And the emotional rock bottoms weren't even necessarily the times I was losing money. It was the times that I looked up and everyone around me was gone. Or I looked up and I was halfway around the world, but I felt the same inside. Without these massive events that were telling me that the problem was within myself, I would have never gone looking for a solution. So if you're out there and you're kind of in this weird holding pattern and you're gambling a lot, here's what you need to do. You need to take an emotional and financial inventory of yourself. In the 12-step program, this is referred to as step 4, and it's a very powerful step because you're figuring out, what have I been doing with my life? And what have I been doing with my money? Once you sit down and you think, here's all of the times I've lied this week. Here's all of the times I deposited to the casino this week. You start to see a pattern where the emotions are matching up with your actions. And then you're saying, wow, I'm causing half of the problems in my own life. In fact, I think I was causing like 99% of the problems in my own life. Because when I would have something negative happen, I'd go to gambling as a result to try to ease the pain, which would then cause more pain as I would lose my money and chase after it, causing me stress. The stress would send me back to the original problem with a bad attitude, which I would handle poorly, and create another problem, which would send me back to gambling. It was a cycle created by my gambling habits, but also the fact that I used it as a coping mechanism for all the things that I was doing wrong personally. Take that inventory of yourself, because that's where you can confront denial. If you feel like something's wrong in your life, but it's not gambling, right? And it might actually be gambling if we are honest with ourselves, that's a good time to take that inventory. If you notice a pattern, it may be a chance to make a positive change in your life. And if you have come to terms with the fact that you have a problem and you want to stop gambling, you want to get help, then check out this video that I made on how I quit gambling. And until then, let's keep getting better together and staying honest with ourselves, one day at a time.